Hello everyone, welcome to my lecture on the topic inflation. Inflation is a complex economic phenomena that can impact from the government to the common people. A good grasp of the concept and related aspect is essential to understand its impact and implications in economic dynamics. In another way, inflation refers to a steady rise in the prices of the various goods and services in the economy. That is, a continuous rise in the prices of the goods and services in the economy tends to be observed in the inflation state. For example, an inflation of 6% in April 2024 means prices of goods and services have increased by 6% compared to the prices in 2023. That is how we can understand the term or how the inflation is referred as. This situation arises due to excessive supply of money in the economy. In simple terms, the term inflation denotes too much money chasing too few goods. It's a situation in which money in customers' or consumers' hands will be more than the goods and services available to them. Thus, the prices of goods rise and the value of money falls, and money supply in the economy increases due to the following two reasons. The first instance is when we can say the money is in excess in the economy is when the government takes a decision or when an additional currency is printed on the demand of the government to meet its requirements, needs and expenditures, which is referred as a deficit financing in the economy. And the second reason for the excess supply of money in the market is due to foreign exchange inflows, foreign direct investment, tourism, and other incomes from abroad. Now we'll look into the next concept, that is types of inflations. Basically, we have listed out here 6 different types of inflations. One is creeping inflation, galloping inflation, hyperinflation, suppressed inflation, hidden inflation, as well as deflation. We'll look into briefly. Take a look into each and every types of inflations and how they are characterized as such. Now first, I'm beginning with the first one, creeping inflation. If the rate of inflation does not exceed the rate of production growth, we can call it as creeping inflation. Suppose, for example, if the production growth rate is 3%, if the production growth rate is 3%, and if the inflation rate is around 2% to 3%, that is in between this category. Now this kind of an inflation, we call it as a creeping inflation. So as the name suggests, this type of inflation creeps when the rise in the prices is slow but continuous. It is manageable and is generally considered good for the growth of an economy because where producers and traders make reasonable profits, which encourages their investments. Now, if this growth rate, if this inflation rate If the inflation rate increases above 3% and it is less than 10%, then we refer it as a walking inflation. Now it must be taken note by the government as a wake-up call, and if not checked, it may lead to a running or a galloping inflation. So galloping inflation is nothing but where the rate of inflation is exceeds 10% and somewhere around less than 10 to 50%. So that high rate of increase in the inflation, we call it as a galloping inflation, and money loses its value in this particular stage. Due to this high level of prices, business and employees may not keep up with the cost and prices. Investors refrain from investing in economics with a high level of inflation. Next one is hyperinflation. The prices rise and are at alarming rate, usually more than 50%. Usually it occurs when there is a large increase in the money supply in the economy. It is an extreme situation where the value of the domestic current may reduce to zero, almost all zero. And the next type of inflation is suppressed inflation. This is the stage where inflationary conditions exist, but the government, with certain policies and measures, will keep the prices under check. It is a short-term measure. Once the measures and policies are lifted up, again there will be a rise in inflation as usual, or it may be even more than the earlier case. Hidden inflation. Hidden inflation is when the government forces the producers to reduce the prices of its goods and services. The producers may not be having a scope of earning more profits in this scenario. In such cases, the only resort left out with the producers is to compromise with the quality of the products. Now, the less quality of the products will be sold out at the higher prices, or the existing prices without any rise is nothing but a hidden inflation. That is, the products of low quality are being bought at a higher price, which may not be observed, or which may not be where the consumers will not be aware of it. Deflation. Deflation is just an opposite to inflation. It is a state where prices fall constantly. It arises due to less money supply in the economy. It is exactly opposite to the term inflation. The causes of inflation. Now there are four instances which give rise to, again, the causes for inflation other than the price rise. It can be a demand pull inflation. That is, if demand pulls prices up. That is, if the demand increases for the goods and services, that will ultimately lead to the increase in the prices. The main reasons for this demand pull inflations may be increase in the money supply, because there is more purchasing power will be increased by the consumers procuring more goods and services, thereby creating the demand for it. When there is an increase in the disposable income. Disposable income is the net income which is available in the hands of the customers for their spending purpose. That income is more, then they start purchasing goods and services more and more quantity, thereby resulting in the demand for the creating a new demand for the commodities. And this demand pull inflation can also be caused due to increase in the aggregate spending. This aggregate spending is nothing but a disposable income again. The next one is increase in the population. If there is a drastic increase in the population in a given geographical area, that creates to the demand, or demand for an increase in the demand for the commodities. That is inflation tends to arise due to this increase in the demand. The next one is cost push inflation. A rise in prices of goods and services. That is factors of production. If the factors of productions are increased, such as land, labor, capital, and organization, land, labor, capital, and organization, this will lead to cost push inflation. This will lead to cost push inflation. If the cost of production increases, that leads to increase in the prices of the goods in order to earn a reasonable amount of profit, or a sufficient amount of profits by the producers. It leads to inflationary conditions because producers try to maintain profit margins by increasing the prices. Next type of inflation is built-in inflation. It is a inflation that is resulted from the past inflation. It is also called as an hangover inflation. It is also can be considered as a adaptive expectations or the perceptions of the people expecting current inflation rates to continue in the future. It is generally depends upon the perception of the customers. The next one is low supply of goods and services. A rise in prices of goods and services due to deficiencies exist in economies, such as due to insufficient storage and distribution facilities, poor productivity, natural calamities, etc. This can also be considered as a structural or bottleneck inflation. These deficiencies lead to shortage of supply of goods and services, which in turn result in its increase in prices. The government faces a tough situation, or a tough time tackling this type of inflation to meet the demand and supply in the market. Another related concept in this particular topic are deflation, disinflation, and stagflation. Deflation refers to a persistent fall in general levels of prices. Thus, it is the opposite of inflation. In this case, the rate of change of price index is negative. And the next concept is disinflation. It refers to a situation when the inflation occurs at a slow pace. For example, if the rate of the price rise in the last month was 6% and it is now 5% in the current month, it will be called deflation. That is, a gradual reduction in the inflation rate is called as a deflation. And stagflation refers to, as this word is made up of two words, that is stagnation and inflation. It refers to an economic situation in which both stagnation, that is a very slow economic growth, tends to persist, as well as price rise occurs simultaneously. This is a rare phenomena and usually in contrast to the normal situations where a high rate of inflation is accompanied by a higher rate of economic growth. This is the end of the session for today. Thank you.